I'm also concerned that in a modern policing era, in a policing investigation that was sadly correct in its hypothesis all the way along, in which officers predicted correctly, very sadly, even the day that Nicola's body would tragically be found.
I'm finding this all very odd and slightly concerning because as someone who used to run murder inquiries and now lectures on murder inquiries, there are two golden rules in any case like this. One is to respect the golden hour. The first 24 hours are absolutely crucial to a case like this. Yeah. And the second is to keep an open mind. And to hear the police say that this is a tragic accident, on what we've got in the public domain at the moment, I cannot understand that statement. And at a stroke of a pen by saying that, they are reducing the publicity. They are clearly upsetting the family, who are now speaking out against them. And they are putting all the eggs in one basket, which professionally I find very odd. We do know from what they've told us that they have a CCTV black spot, a place where someone could have gone into that field. And we know that they've got a 10-minute window, which they can't account for. Well, you only have to look at the Julia Jones case in Kent a couple of years ago. The lady, the PCSO off-duty, walking her dog who was tragically attacked. Yeah. That attack, less than 1 minute. A 10-minute window, you cannot rule out criminality. You cannot rule out a third party being at that location. And of course, with Sarah Payne, we had 9 different hypotheses as to what happened to that little girl. With Nicola, there's 7 different hypotheses. Only one of them is she fell in the river. So I am very confused by this, and I feel for the family because you try and keep the publicity up, you try and keep hope up by exploring every angle, every line of inquiry. And what the police need to do now is explain why they've shut 8 of those 6 out of those 7 nights of inquiry down.
Because clearly they've said there's no signs of skid marks or feet or whatever going into the river or even away from that bench. And the phone's still there on the bench as well.
I cannot believe that you've got senior officers saying this is clearly a tragic accident. There is a lot to suggest this could have been an unexpected attack or a kidnap of a lady distracted on her phone and with a dog. And don't forget, the dog was found dry and out of its harness, both of which are unusual if she's fallen in the river. I have dogs. If I fell in the river, my dogs would jump in with me. So this just doesn't ring true. And I'm not sure why they're doing this. The police need to answer this concern because I'm not the only person, the ex-professional, saying this is very odd. The police need to reassure people and reassure the family, otherwise they're going to lose the family.
The reason that we've commissioned the review is because, yes, it is good practice when such a major story has come out and there's been such public concern to address that public concern and ask the questions and get somebody independent to come in. I'm also concerned that in a modern policing era, in a policing investigation that was sadly correct in its hypothesis all the way along, in which officers predicted correctly, very sadly, even the day that Nicola's body would tragically be found.
Good day, everyone. Welcome back to Mind Juice. As you just observed and heard, were comments from 2 UK police and crime commissioners. Martin Underhill, who served from 2012 to 2021 in Dorset, is the one who is clearly seeing right through things. Then, of course, the one from Lancashire, right? The one whom truly believes his eloquent delivery, and by itself, his words are strong enough to convince those listening he is actually commissioning effectively and efficiently. I'll say, it has become apparent Mr. Snowden is clearly, beyond all doubt, at least in some respect, a piece as to what has gone wrong and continues to be upheld in regards to what they want to or are trying to force you to believe is and was Nicola's truth. Now, I want to get into the inquest further, of course, the process for reopening it, needing new evidence. This may be quite a long journey, as it does take the appropriate attention, someone in higher power, right? But if you stay with me, we together can do this, okay? with that said, I've been noticing, looking at my last couple videos, we're getting good views on this. So that means that people are still caring about Nicola's truth. That's amazing. But I don't think a lot of people are subscribing. So, and the reason I mention that is, if you have a second for this entire cause, please subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a like. It helps the video and the algorithm. And the more people that see this, and the exposure is important, right? Enough of that. Let us all take a step back. I ask each and every one of you a single question. Open-minded, please. Further, let's not just focus this on Lancashire, St. Michael's, the River Wire. In general, across the world, in the case where someone goes missing, like Nicola, if they do not already know how it would play out or are behind something, honestly, how can a police force, unit, team predict when said missing person will be found? Wait, let me correct myself. He said, Mr. Snowden, they predicted when a body would be found. So they, the police, predicted when Nicola would be found, her body. Knew she was already dead then. On day 23, they nailed it. Snowden's attempting to use this as a, look how great they did, them all-stars, they even nailed the exact day. But what he doesn't realize, that this is probably the stupidest thing he could possibly say. That one line, that one sentence has so many issues wrapped up into it. Think about it. Let me clarify. Snowden, do you realize that what you are saying, in what world do police predict the recovery or the finding of a missing person? But they nailed it. They get the credit. Yet, let's remember, she wasn't found by the police, but a psychic. Dude, just when you think things can't become any worse or more clear, foul play is definitely in play here. Mr. Adeley, what did you miss? Predict when a body will be found, when in fact the police shifted their focus away from that very river approximately 4 or 5 days prior to her being found. Wait. So let me get this straight, Mr. Snowden. What you are saying is that police predicted even the day the body, Nicola, would be found, which again, the body implies that she was already deceased in this prediction, or they already knew, right? Then he, Mr. Snowden, if they predicted it, why wasn't it them and the police who found her? I'm not sure if you remember, sir, or even care, but it was a psychic whom himself, personally, has expressed he came to the case because he was contacted by a family member, which I argue is Paul. If the police predicted it, why wouldn't they be the ones to find her? Oh, yeah, duh. Then they would have to answer to the questions as to why they didn't find her the first 23 days, right? So you bring in a psychic dude. You pull out the Michael Brooks card again, which is another big mistake. You should never do it twice. A psychic. Have him say, thank you guys so much. The Lancashire police were great. They even respected my views as a psychic and the power of visions. And then apparently in Mr. Snowden's view, that's good enough. Police crime and commissioner. You praise the police work all throughout, how correct they were. They didn't find her. Jason did. This is clear proof you already knew she was dead. So did the police. Predicted the day despite taking the resources away, and you are confirming this. Jason is thus 100% affiliated to the police and Paul, whomever is atop this wicked plot. Whether Jason realizes it or is aware of it at all, that's true. They didn't even take anything he said into account at the inquest. They want you to forget his part in this, his role in this. They probably hate the fact that he's expressing and responding to people and commenting and all of that, right? Ah, hail the Lancashire Constabulary. Their hypothesis was great. They were right all along. No, it wasn't. And the inquest even proved that further. I'll get there. This is not conspiracy. This is the truth. Mr. Snowden, you help reveal that. Again, and I quote, Mr. Snowden stated, in a police investigation, correct in its hypothesis, sadly correct in its hypothesis, all the way along, in which officers, predicted correctly, very sadly, even the day Nicola would be found. Whoa! Now, I know I keep pounding that point, but one of you special subscribers out there actually sent me this video a little while back, and thank you to that individual. I won't call you out directly, but it only has 800 views. So my first thought is, holy smokes, Mr. Snowden, this needs to be exposed. So I bring it here because it's so important. I hope you're following me here, right? Would you consider police predicting when and what day they find a resolution to their investigation or crime, not specifically just Nicola's, anyone in general, as something that is realistic? Is that reality? Is it authentic? Were they following leads and following up on things, questioning? No. It's not. It can't be. You, Mr. Snowden, are expressing as a way to bolster the police's rapport when in fact you don't realize it in fact reconfirms Mind Juice's perspective and the people supporting Nicola's truth that this whole ordeal is indeed corrupt, and further throws yourself right there along in there with them if you weren't there already. In my opinion, you definitely were. Remember, the police spent over 20 days searching that river, with all of the resources, all of the money, right? That's a key trigger here. Money. All of that. They even took a team out to the bay, despite, remember, you hear Peter Falding say, not against them, it's just me connecting it, right? Falding says that he didn't think it would be likely that she could even make it out to the bay because of the shallows and the turns. Right? That's an expert's opinion who's standing boot length in the water giving his advice. But yet they're spending all this money to drive these boats out and they have Sky News right there ready to capture it. Right? Like I said, Falding didn't suggest that it was plausible or even a likely scenario. Let's take it a step further. Remember, in the presser on the 15th, including Peter Lawson and Becky Smith, which at that time they were still searching the river, right? Mr. Peter Lawson, in fact, at this time, as I will show you here in a minute, so you can hear it yourself again, he alludes to, in future days, having to consider shifting resources away from the river after he talks with Becky SIO and the team. That was the 15th, which days later they did. But yet, 4 or 5 days later, Nicola's body miraculously is found in that same river. Wait, they just switched focus away from that area they spent all that money and resources on. Well, that's because that was exactly that part of the plan. That's how they spent that budget. Seriously. Really making certain, which was supposed to be spent at the end of March, right? Which was first mentioned the night of the 26th, the day before Nicola went missing. There's a recording of it, and you can hear them say, we'll get back to you on that, right? It hadn't even been tapped into yet. How much of that budget funding was used towards Nicola's case? Because everyone, in my opinion, it was washed through this whole ordeal. People are taking their own cut. They knew the outcome. They predicted the day. They weren't literally spending that money. They want you to believe they were. Sure, they had to spend the bare minimum, but if you look at every video, you got officers walking around not really looking. But not to the degree and bringing in the experts and doing all that they want you to believe. Like I said, they already knew how everything would play out. The Lancashire Constabulary, had a prediction. They knew that although they're going to shift all their resources away, they predicted, as Snowden says, that Nicola's body, which suggests they knew she was already dead, that after moving their resources, they would, Jason Rothwell, a psychic, would find her body in that very same river. Thanks, Snowden, for proving officially and showing us that Jason is indeed affiliated officially with the whole corrupt dynamic here, and yourself definitively as well. In fact, I would say you just took a major egg to the face for you and your corrupt crew. Now, serious question. How could the police possibly predict when her body would be found on the 23rd day, which ended up being a place wherein they had just shifted focus away from, exhausted their resources, brought in the best experts, like I'd already said. Yet, they were still right in their prediction. But dude, Snowden, you just moved the resources. You're not looking there anymore. Their answer, what they predicted, you as commissioner have the audacity to sit in front of the mic in the public and attempt to word dance some official police and commissioner bullshit? The beautiful irony here, remember, Jason said it was his 2 fish died and the moon was moving into Pisces, so as soon as a member of her family contacted him to help, that was his vision which led him to her, right? So it was the moon, okay? Then, or wait, was it his dog Hudson dying 2 days before, and that gave him the sign to the Hudson fish hatchery? Okay, and I'll show that on the map. That led him eventually to her. Everyone, look at that. The Lancashire Constabulary, Becky, Snowden, Jason, all have such perfect predictions. Or for Jason, let's call them a vision. Call it whatever you want, either or both. They are both the same thing, gamesmanship, an approach to a dirty game that they still think they are too swift at and will never be caught in. I hope this turns the heat up a bit. We will straighten this entire thing out in due time. Now, I know most of you listening here with me are the subscribers and right there along with me pushing for the true cause. But of course, there are the naysayers. Please, this is not a whimsical, head up my ass attack at the police coming out to just slap something up on the internet. This is an honest, professional, excuse my language sometimes, common sense, clear, obvious revealing of the anomalies and the inconsistencies that reveal themselves, how afoul this whole process has been. The police and crime commissioners are sworn to an oath to remain impartial. They are for the public. Yet you have Snowden adamantly defending the police, correct all right along, predicted when they would find a body, while at the same time spitting amateur detectives and wild media narrative, etc. Snowden, you are far from impartial. Like I said, in due time, your self-perception as some astute police crime and commissioner will be tarnished. You, pal, are corrupt as it gets. Now, yes, this is my opinion, of course, but ask yourself, how can police predict when a missing person's body will be found when they spent 20 days expending all of their resources and money in that same area, not finding her themselves? In fact, if the police did predict when she would be found, as Snowden suggests, it becomes even more fishy, like I said, because they didn't find her. They nailed that 23rd day. Snowden says they got it all right. But wait, Jason Rothwell, the psychic, was given a vision. Can't keep his story straight. So you, Snowden, dismiss this key fact. Let's not forget her, Nicola, being first observed floating down the middle of the river, are comprehending this reality. Not amateur detective work here, sir. This is true Sherlock shit, my friend. As the police being correct all along. Yet, as the police crime and commissioner, your primary job is to commission and remain impartial. As a representative of the community and the people of Lancashire and at that St. Michael's, to hold the police to account. You even say in your interview what was the purpose for you raising it, and you said it was to appease the public. Right? Why would you say that? With that said, special shout out and thanks to everyone continuing to send me information, links, videos. It makes all of the difference in the world, and I would love to get back to each and every one of you. I sincerely would. But if I did that, today I've had 32 emails, just today, right? And please, people, keep sending them. Don't think I'm not reading them. Someday I'll get back to you, okay? Just please understand I'm not forgetting, okay? In fact, I need you guys to continue because that's what helps me put this stuff together. We're all together on this, right? It's for Nicola's truth. Let's keep it going. We are hitting close. I will remain persistent to ensure this does not go by the wayside. That's a promise. So, Mr. Snowden, Peter Lawson, Becky Smith, Dr. James Adeley, Paul, Louise, Emma, hear me loud and clear. I stand with the heart of St. Michael's for the right reasons, for and with the public. The good folk, that is. Now, in this piece, I will discuss the inquest further, where I'm intending to go, with that, the appeal process, and what we can all do to help, okay? There's more than enough to reopen an investigation. Not getting too technical right here, right now. Per law and the process, what it takes to establish the basis for new evidence or what qualifies. But the door's still open for us to power through. Don't let the bow tie and the suits fear comments scare you away, right? This is becoming, Nicola's name is becoming a major legacy. This can mark changes in law. It can change, like, if they may be doing that to make laws for stronger silence against the public, right? But that's where the buck stops, right? I am for now focused on really fleshing out the clear corrupt dynamic and organization in play here, because to me that's the most important. Because you can come up with all the new evidence you want, but as I've shown, as I continue to show you, there is a strong stable of horse that are all patting each other's back on this, right? I'm not saying they all know about it. Maybe they get slipped $500,000 to not say or think anything about it. You know what I'm saying? Money talks. I now believe this doesn't just stop with Nicola. If they're playing these cards and the games with this case, which are very clear, you know how confident I'm becoming with this. Each and every turn, it's becoming more and more clear. We could be right. This can't be the first time that they're doing these things, though. I'm not saying specifically getting away with murder or whatever have you, right? But they're clearly taking advantage of people and moving money around like they shouldn't be, okay? Which is why it is all the more important to ensure that this gets pounded aloud strongly now. It cannot be swept under. Those in that area whom have access or information or history and experiences, I want to say a side note here. Please do take account, document, save any and all things you think are important or may be in regards to any actions or processes you've had with any of these people, the constabulary in the past that may help us down the road, okay? In regards to Snowden, Becky, etc., Peter, any of the players, you get it. Jason, right? Because I think the money trail, which there's one of you subscribers out there, you know who you are, sent me a great email today suggesting this idea. So I'll tip my cap to you on this, and I agree. I'll get back to you. The money trail under this whole thing is definitely in play. There's definitely money being moved around. So if anybody works inside somewhere that can prove transactions going on around this and a substantial sum of money, that's extremely important, and it needs to be documented as soon as possible. Back to focus. Snowden suggests they were right all along, which we know is the working hypothesis, her being in the river, which, taking that into account, we heard the previous Dorset police crime and commissioner, the guy in the beginning, express how he was so shocked he couldn't believe as to why they were so quick to dismiss the alternative 6, he states, hypothesis and hitch to just 1. He states that with the cameras being out and all these things, there's no way that you can rule criminality out. A police crime and commissioner says that. Yet Snowden himself, who also holds the same role, clearly is not operating on the same ethics or oath by which Underhill did. Who would you want to be your police crime and commissioner? Because I know my answer. Now, I want to share a few more clips here. Snowden expressing further the police narrative and how important that is to him, being concerned as to how the modern media has twisted, and don't listen to all of his words, don't take them personal, how it lost control. He states that the reviews were, of course, decided by himself to calm the public concern, yet he himself, as I have in the past shown and discussed, preempted these reviews' results before they'd even taken place. He has praised the police all throughout, not exhibiting to be impartial while a review's going on. That's where I told you the writing was on the wall. He is to remain impartial for the people. If the reviews were authentic, he would not praise the police work, double down on how great they were prior to those reviews, which he has done over and over and over. Snowden is fixated on the narrative, appeasing the public, or so they think. We'll have some reviews. That'll do. They'll believe that. We'll move on. Case closed here. Please stop saying things and come up with conspiracies that hurt the family. But not scrutinizing very clear issues, problems with the police approach. This alone should have him canned. By the pure words within the oath by which he swore, he is in violation to an extreme. I'll show you here shortly. Listen to Snowden really show his cards further. This gets good. Just wait. His fixation, like I said, on the narrative. He even references having control and ins and outs with certain media affiliates. What? Why do you think the whole narrative came out about Faulding being nixed off the expert list? Yeah, yep. Things are starting to really make sense now. Really make sense now. Remember, the media also suggested she was found in the reeds, and they used that to throw Faulding under the bus? Snowden, you'll see here shortly, alludes to his relationship, because the media doesn't really add up. Yeah, and then they silence them for so long, remember, until the April 4th river, and then they start coming out again. Like, in the Inquest, I'm going to digress here for a second. They have a professor who's an expert on rivers. Speak! And you had Peter Faulding there. What the hell, Mr. Adeley? What the hell? Then, I just want you to keep that in mind as we go along, please. Then I want to show you Becky revealing the presser. Again, it was Paul expressing concerns, immediately making her high-risk misper. That is the basis for their working hypothesis, right? Now, as we heard all throughout the vulnerabilities, we actually learn in the inquest, January 10th, it was Luis who called in the concern. And I saw someone sent me another source the other day in the inquest that Nicola was actually confused as to why that had all happened. And she didn't really understand. You know what that means to me? She didn't understand why they were taking it to this extreme and extent they did, like calling the police. She was confused. That is speaking from the grave. That's genuine. Her beginning to recognize something was afoul. Then you have the whole thing where she was beginning to reassess and have her mortgage moved around, and then Paul responded to the person and said that that wasn't the case. Was that really what tipped the final cap to him? Did he raise his hand to the people at the funding and say, hey, I have an idea of a way to expend that budget? I'm not speculating and saying that's the truth, but hey, it could be. Very likely could be, right? It definitely is not Paul's idea of her juggling a harness and a phone that miraculously landed perfectly in place, and then she slipped in. They also, days before she went missing, there was an alcohol incident. Paul and Louise have publicly expressed to the public some of her most private information. To the Lancashire constabulary, Becky slipped into vulnerabilities. Peter Lawson confirming that, doubling down, and saying something about vulnerabilities. The Facebook post that came out even worse. Her menopause struggles, blah, blah, blah. From the very beginning, yet at the inquest, we find out, which was clear as day, there was no alcohol found. Well, there was, but they chalked that up to not being able to determine that between the natural breakdown processes, right? She was sober that day. But yet they want to talk about 2018, 2021, etc. But yet Dad said she was doing great and how happy she was. By itself, on its face, the police's leading hypothesis, she's a high-risk misper, the vulnerabilities, we have every reason to believe, remember, they're basing their logic off of that. This itself, on its face, should raise concern with the police's handling of that case from day one. Mr. Adeley, please explain yourself. You'll hear how adamant Becky Smith was given her information from Paul. She's such a high-risk misper. At inquest, they deemed accident. That alone discounts the strong conviction of Becky in the Lancashire Constabulary's working hypothesis. She's in the river, she's in the river, she's in the river, based on her vulnerabilities as a high-risk misper. Snowden now comes and says, they were right all along, they even protected the day. She wasn't being a high-risk misper, the vulnerabilities, she was in the river the entire time. are proven. None of those land. None of them. Not a single one. So Snowden, how is the police work so great? Mr. Adeley, why did you allow it to go this far? Why? That's... Oh, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. At the inquest, they deemed accident, like I said. In fact, they didn't even have anything to back anything of what they had to say. Nothing of the sort was used to validate the investigation itself whatsoever. The working hypothesis, Becky's basis for how you would a typical case like this. The inquest shows how wrong she was, but the police crime commissioner, they did great. And I just repeated myself, but it's just, you got to understand, people. I spend 15 hours a day going through this stuff. At the time I'm coming to record it, I don't know what I've said and what I haven't because it's been running through my head all day. So please bear with me. Yeah, in the inquest, none of this police hypothesis is founded. The vulnerabilities couldn't be proven to have played a part. The vulnerabilities were just a part of the plan that Louise Paul kicked the whole tragedy off on. After the inquest, what was founded or concluded to validate high-risk misper? That's right, everybody. Nothing. An inquest is designed to answer who, when, where, how. We already knew it was Nicola Bulley, or was it? They say it's her. At this point, you can't believe anything she said, anything they say. They gave us the cause of her death was drowning because there's water in her lungs. But that's not how. When, where, how, still to this day has absolutely nothing to answer. Nothing. It is an accident which happened under an umbrella of an array of, that's a possible scenario. I can't confirm that, but that's a possible scenario. I don't know how she crested the weird. They didn't say that, but they never addressed it. They said she was on the bank, but the media said she was in the reeds. And Jason, whom found her, who is an affiliate with the police apparently, said she was floating down the damn river. Well, and in the words of Mr. James Adeley, apparently all three of them are possible scenario, but there's water in her lungs, so there's nothing suspicious. Let's move on here. Accident done. Think about it. Becky said the working hypothesis, high-risk misper, vulnerabilities, the inquest conclusion doesn't align. How does that make the police hypothesis look good? How is it great, Mr. Snowden? Thus, I argue you must consider alternative hypotheses like Martin Underhill suggested, who's a police crime and commissioner himself. So if you don't like me, he holds the same role as Mr. Snowden and has, 8 years more experience? They've refused to consider anything else from day one. You cannot take an SIO working hypothesis, give it to the coroner who can only configure drowning as a cause of death, not how. Remember, that's important, which we most likely knew already was drowning, right? It's clear. But you can't even put her in that environment that day. Simply water in her lungs, not explaining any of the bruising. The man who found her said she was floating down the middle. The inquest suggests the bank. How, Mr. Adeley, can you conclude accident? You cannot select one. You cannot just go and say it's not misadventure, it's not suicide, it's not... You can't do that. I don't need your experience and your title to say that. And I don't think people that would audit you authentically from the heart would agree with what you did. You may have had the perfect sterling career up until now, and I respect that and you deserve credit for that. But you clearly made the wrong decision here. Mr. Adeley, with all due respect, you should have never allowed this thing to get to the inquest hearing. The investigation should have been undergone, taken further. And if the Lancashire police was not cooperative, then that's not an excuse. I'm sure you would know the appropriate thing to do. Wouldn't you? Why didn't you? With that said, I now recognize it is more and more becoming my responsibility to take this as people are being silenced all over the place. Arrested. Curtis Media was arrested during the funeral. Remember? He couldn't be around for that. Now he's arrested, coincidentally, perfectly in line with the inquest. and they want to splash some news articles out there and say because he's some threat. People, his videos giving perspective to us out here of the area were some of the most important parts of this case. And for that, Curtis, thank you. That video of her being removed from the water, I will forever keep, because someday that copy will be extremely important, because the way they removed Nicola Bulley from that water was so disgraceful, did not follow etiquette, and is so out of line from how you would approach a situation like this, it's not even funny. Why do you think they're so pissed at Curtis? They sat there and they waited to give him a ticket and all that. Because he revealed how unprofessional they handled this thing from the very beginning. Right? But Snowden says they predicted it. Yay! I can't. This is just getting worse and worse. 3 of the 4 prongs an inquest is designed to answer are still left unanswered. And then they come out in the post-presser suggesting that the clear and definitive facts presented, the conclusion drawn by the coroner, need to move on, everybody. No! Just because you people with a particular name or a position or, like I said, have this experience says, believe me, move on, and in turn cast arrest at those who step too close, silence those who pose a threat. Mr. Snowden, if they were so great at their job and they did it accurately and that's the real truth, why do you make these moves? Why do they arrest Curtis Media? I don't know, he was driving too close. No, that's just the next bullshit red herring you prop up to explain your dirty games. And here's the thing. It's all clearer now because everything connects. Right? Right? Now, sincerely, I want you to not take this too sensitively, everybody. I'm going to be honest. I live in the U.S., have always loved the U.K., but it comes from a perspective without ever having visited, okay? But I have to remind myself routinely as of late, and this dawned on me, Lancashire is in England. Don't forget that. It's not Russia, mind juice. No, it's not the people. I love each and every one of you. I know 98% of you there are amazing people, okay? But the militia police, the police and crime and commissioner, and how they handle business, people's lives. They take selfies and post them up with the chief constable shortly after they slipped the vulnerabilities. Now you find out they predicted it. And now you find out the inquest, the vulnerabilities, the working hypothesis actually doesn't make sense because they ruled it an accident. But yet the commissioner says how great they were. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. This is not an overstep. Like, seriously, in what country can this type of handling be allowed by a police force, acknowledged by a coroner, forced by the people to accept, using intimidation and threat of silence and being arrested? I apologize, but before the 27th, as an American, I would never perceive such culture to exist within what is supposed to be a public service organization. Now, I realize the UK is a monarchy, not as free, so to speak, but I am certain you're just as close as being a brother to the US as any other country. Well, Canada too, but this culture image is not what the UK wants to stand for, is it? And I'm not saying it represents you guys, but this is a public organization operating this way. So as long as people want to give up or remain silent, allow this to continue, the more people they're going to continue to slight. After uncovering all of this, it is clear that they didn't start with Nicola, nor is it likely going to stop. This money washing, whatever they're doing, right? Further, as we continue, I want you to listen to Peter Lawson take the mic from Becky when asked about Peter Faulding and his efforts. Mr. Lawson completely avoids, dismisses, ignores said inquiry directly. Mr. Lawson takes ownership. I think I have figured out the chief issue with Mr. Faulding, or what they have an issue with. Specifically, we'll get there. All right, I'm going to go over this briefly with Snowden. I'm going to play it through, not all the way, just certain segments I want to highlight. I'm going to comment on a couple things, then I'm going to show Peter Lawson, Becky, and some things that I want to point out there. All right.
We've commissioned the review is because, yes, it is good practice when such a major story has come out and there's been such public concern to address that public concern and ask the questions and get somebody independent to come in.
The main reason you should be running an inquest, in my opinion, is because you want to get to the bottom and find further answers for the victim, right? Nicola Bulley. But it's good practice, you know, and it's all a game. This is supposed to be good enough to appease the public. They move on.
Also concerned that in a modern policing era, in a policing investigation that was sadly correct in its hypothesis all the way along, in which officers predicted correctly, very sadly, even the day that Nicola's body would tragically be found.
I know I've already hit this point like 5 times, but that statement by him right there to me is the most mind-blowing thing. I can't even, like, what's he doing? Their working hypothesis was based on a high-risk misper, and Becky says it's immediate protocol to do high-risk misper, what she heard from Paul. They pump the vulnerabilities. Then we hear it's an accident at the inquest, and there's no basis for any of the vulnerabilities. They could be accurate, as in her personal life, right? But they had nothing to do with the day she went missing, right? So how can they be accurate all the way? And then suggesting they predicted the day. And they moved their resources away 4 days before she's found. Come on, dude.
And yet, it became such a story, particularly in the national papers, about bungling, incompetent cops. Yet they were right all along. So how did the police lose control of that narrative?
And you notice he's holding his pen. I don't know if that's supposed to be makes him look smarter or more believable, but what the hell are you holding the pen for, dude?
To outlets like the Lancashire Post, BBC Radio Lancashire, Lancashire Telegraph, Blackpool Gazette, all who were very measured and sensible in their reporting and listened to what the police were saying. But that wasn't the case with a lot of the national newspapers, and then this became an international...
This is the problem. Hear what he just said? He's talking about certain news media listening to the police. Those that reported outside and those he references now, he's going to talk about being the narrative, the ones that are allowed to have free speech. That's what he's talking about. He is suggesting and ridiculing those who didn't listen to the police. He's the police and crime commissioner. He's supposed to be impartial to the people. Freedom of press. Nope. Media isn't approved unless they listen to the police. Listen to this guy right here. Are you kidding me? And then the media, watch this. The media brandished, she was found in the reeds. They used that to throw Peter Falding under the bus. Get this even further. The news articles are the ones that suggested Peter Falding was removed from some expert list. Everybody, there's no expert list. Peter Falding even tweeted out, or on Facebook, rather, whatever one it was, and said that was all spun. What would be the purpose to spin a narrative in the media to suggest that he's no longer on an expert list when there really isn't one? But yet, Peter Falding himself has actually continued to do work with other police departments across the UK. So he loses credibility and you don't believe what he says. And you know what the crazy thing is? Peter Falding was the one who suggested possibly the phone and the harness could be a decoy. Then Paul kind of, mentioned it. That's why the Lancashire police cut him off, because they were decoys. I'm going to get to there later. Emma, can't forget this either. She started that GoFundMe page in like the first week, 2 weeks, and then she uses the media to apologize and blah blah blah. He's telling you right here, the good media is the ones that listen to the police. You catching it? So Peter Falding was never removed from an expert list. They shunned him. They don't like the decoy idea. They don't like if she's not in there, I don't know where she's at. She couldn't have made it out to everything he's saying just from rational, honest, trying to find a victim. They don't like that. They used a college professor who's apparently some expert in rivers and whatever. Somebody out there, if you want to do something to help out, would be great to dig into him and research. Actually go and look and see what his history is. Does he have any articles published? Does he have... I want to see what his expertise in rivers and stuff is. I honestly do. And then the attorney, Allison Arthur. Apparently she doesn't have the most polished, clean history either. It's interesting the players they've used throughout this, right? All right, I'll shut up.
Sensationalized story, and TikTok in particular, and online amateur detectives pushing conspiracy theories out, which resulted in vile abuse towards...
Oh, God, make me sick. And I'm not being insensitive to Nikki Bulley. I rest in peace, or her family, right? Everybody knows that. This guy, like, I can't even explain to you what my emotions are. Oh, man, if I could reach through my screen. No. But he talks to people like, you're so stupid. Like, you're never going to catch on to this. You're never... And amateur detectives, yo, bro, I'm going to explain something here real quick, and I keep digressing. I know I'm a YouTube channel, but I went to law school, okay? So I have that basis. And then I was following my heart, just not happy with that. I went and got my master's degree in marriage and family therapy. And I don't say masters as some way to say, hey, look at me. No. That, I'm just explaining the degree of education. In that, I learned at a very high level how to pick out flaws, anomalies, toxic patterns, how different personalities interact with one another. Yes, for the setting of a family or a couple, right? But what I have learned through this case, my legal background and marriage and family dynamic, which really focuses on human interrelationships, communication, all of that, I have become very passionate and educated at catching on to organizational structure between people that doesn't add up, that's fishy, where's toxic patterns, where's ain't telling the truth. You see it? Just to explain where I'm coming from and how can I get on here and call these people out and act like you're speaking really to them. Well, everybody, I am as humble as possible, I promise. This is all about getting through to the truth, right? And I realize, you know, me getting this far probably is not very safe. You know, I get that, but I understand that. I'm not naive and think that just because I'm over in the U.S., there's not somebody that they can hit up. I'm not stupid, right? But I just speak from the heart because sometimes I feel bad that I'm saying things a little too harsh, right?
Nicola's family and friends, how did that get so out of hand? And that is one of the clear work streams for the review of the College of Policing. The criticism that was aimed at the force wasn't just directed at the confidence that they had in their hypothesis about what sadly proved prescient had actually happened to Nicola Bulley. It was also about the release of sensitive information about her, wasn't it? Was there any point during that investigation that you felt uncomfortable or had pause for thought? Well, the ICO have made their statement on the release of that information. I have my own personal private views. This is one area of work stream for the college, so that's not something I would want to preempt. And I think I'll let the college do their work on that, and then we'll be happy to discuss that once that.
So he's saying he's independent here from them. Let them do the review. But you see him speak in an article, and he goes and continues to suggest how right the police are all around. Okay, he's not the chief constable, everybody. He's the police crime and commissioner, which by oath is to remain as impartial as possible, leading the fight to crime to put criminals in jail, being the one that holds the police to account. These reviews weren't authentic.
It was concluded, but I wouldn't want to preempt the outcome of that. Just finally on this, how close was your contact with the force during that period? Because obviously the force has to remain operationally independent. I can't direct and control operational resources, so my job is not to ring up the chief constable in the morning and tell him where to put which officers and how to run investigations. They are the professionals and know.
See, nice joke. No, you calling him in the morning shouldn't be even within the realm of possibility, right? It's unprofessional to even make that joke. Just like joking around when they slipped at the presser, right? God, he thinks he's so, like, suave with the way he talks, man.
Do this. Am I there to hold to account and make sure that, yes, in times of difficulty, the constabulary has the resources that they need and the backing that they need, but also to make sure that I'm keeping a close eye and holding the force to account in my role effectively as the regulator for Lancashire Police, as the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. So I was receiving...
Yeah. Do you understand what that means? I know you said it, but I don't think you do.
Regular briefings from the chief officer team on the case as it unfolded.
Here we go to the 15th presser. I'm going to show some things from Becky and from Peter Lawson.
Hi there, Detective Superintendent. Can you just give us a bit more information about what Nikki's partner told you about her vulnerabilities, and why was it that you had to then identify her as high risk? And also, this is the 20th day that Nicola Bulley has been missing. How confident are you and your team that you will find her alive?
She's not confident at all, because Mr. Snowden told us and revealed to us that they predicted what day she would be found. You heard the reporter asking the question there that it was in fact day 20 at this time. So I've been saying 4 days throughout. That's one thing with making these, everybody. If I'm off on a specific, please don't freak out about it. Like I said, there's so many moving pieces, right? But that question, right? And we've already discussed how the vulnerabilities and the working hypothesis doesn't really match because none of that was founded. And then we know that they predicted the day. Remember? Now listen.
Okay, so firstly, to cover the information about Paul, it's normal in any missing person investigation that you obviously gather as much information at an early stage about the person in question, which is no different, and we did that with Paul. I'm not going to go into the details of those individual vulnerabilities. I've asked you to respect the family who are going through unimaginable pain and distress at this moment. But those vulnerabilities based our decision making in terms of grading Nicola as high risk, and have continued to
those vulnerabilities based their decision making. She says it herself.
Part of my investigation throughout. In terms of, sorry, what was the second part to your question?
It's the 20th day since
Absolutely.
Nicola's been missing. How confident are you and your team that you'll find Nicola Bulley alive?
I hope with all my heart that we find Nicola Bulley alive.
They predicted what day she would be found. She just said, I hope with all my heart. If your screen listening that you're watching right now, or the earphones you're listening to, did not just instantly turn to ice, I don't know.
More than anything,
How confident are you?
I have told you that my working hypothesis is at the moment, through all the information that we have gathered, that the likelihood is that Nicola has unfortunately gone in the river. However, I have to stress this because this has been continually...
They were right all along. They were right all along.
...construed. I cannot be 100% certain of that at the minute because we are continuing. It's a live investigation and there is always information coming in. But we are in the 20th day. We have had a thorough, dedicated, meticulous investigation, and there is not one single piece of information that has come to note that would suggest that Nicola has left those fields.
How do you know? The cameras worked. Look at her face. The cameras didn't even work.
Good morning, Brett. Two questions. First of all, can we confirm whether Nicola was wearing a headset at the time she was...
No, she wasn't.
So she wasn't, she was listening to it directly.
Yes.
Secondly, as you come to the end, onto the Iron Bridge, you turn left. So right, you say,
yes.
That's been covered off
Yes.
by CCTV.
Yes.
Are we saying that to the left is a blind spot, and if so, how far down? There's no CCTV there, I take it, that's been
Not on that main road. I can't give you the specifics of the exact how many sites, but we were basically scoping off all the, as you turn left, we're trawling all that area for any CCTV that we have got, but the main road, that area there, isn't covered, unfortunately. So from the Iron Bridge to...
She just cut that reporter off. Damn it, let me finish. No, but here's the deal. They're looking, and she's even admitting that there's, from the Iron Bridge, and she's about to say the school, there's no coverage. So they don't know if Nicola was there, and if she was, they wouldn't be able to tell. We know the caravan park CCTV didn't work, and one of the Rowan Water ones didn't work. So, Mr. Adeley, I don't understand, dude. How can you deem an accident? Why did you allow it to get to inquest? Where's the further investigation? Well, still to come.
School, if you will. Yes. There is nothing there, which is why it's so important for the dash cam we have reviewed. Some of it doesn't show anything, some is still being reviewed. But at the minute, there is absolutely no sightings of Nicola on there.
Did I hear correctly that you reported SIO on the Monday?
I was, yes.
Had Lancashire Police missed the trick? Nicola Bulley went missing on Friday, and SIO appointed not until the Monday. Enough done in the first 24, 48 hours.
I can probably take this. I am satisfied that as
she was asked, basically, I know you guys can hear, you know, but I'm just doing it to clear my thoughts. She was asked if she thought that maybe it was a hindrance to the entire investigation as a whole, considering Nicola went missing on Friday. She wasn't assigned till Monday. Wouldn't even answer. Lawson took it from her, which is very interesting because he's being delicate about that answer, right? Here's the deal. Remember, she's the Sherlock. She's the psyop outside the eyes of the public. You know, after doing all this and continuing to find, like, Snowden now, saying they predicted the day and all that, like, it predicted the day. It's either a really corrupt organization thing going on, or it's some type of psychological operation. And I'm not being crazy. Like, that would actually make more sense, because then that many people wouldn't be as evil. You know what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? And Becky does come from that department. That's her experience, you know. So all these lies and all these cover-ups, and there's some dude in the comments made, like, for my last video, kind of mocking me, going, "Okay, so which one did it? Lois, Paul, Emma?" Basically kind of trying to say, come on, dude, you keep switching. No. I'll say it again. My mission is Nicola's truth. I'm pointing out things that don't make sense, players that aren't adding up. I would have never imagined in a million years I would be sitting here right now implicating multiple people. And that's what I'm saying. Like, is it really this bad? Is it real? Is it really this corrupt? Because what I'm showing here shows it is. It's not even a question anymore. The vulnerability, I mean, the working hypothesis and vulnerabilities, you heard Becky just say it. That was the basis for the decision. Snowden saying how great their work was, they predicted. Holy smokes. Then Nicola Bulley was killed. She was kidnapped, then killed, and they're covering it up. They had Jason find it so they didn't have to answer the questions. And look, every time I pause, look, he's in deep thought. It's so calculated, right? But that's crazy. Would they really do that? I mean, wow. Is that human? Like, is it?
As Becky has described, following the initial report of Nicola as being missing to Lancashire Police, immediately she was graded as high risk. That in itself is a significant level of risk that does bring with it focused attention and significant resources. So I'm satisfied that given there was...
Focused attention and significant... Okay, so remember, Becky's specialties have nothing to do with high-risk mispers. I've already discussed that.
No evidence of any crime having occurred at that first point of the report. Yes, it was handled appropriately, but as the days began to progress, as would be normal with any high-risk missing person investigation, who hadn't turned up, hadn't been found by Monday. We began to layer in the expertise of a senior investigating officer with all the investigation infrastructure that comes with that.
Jerry Williamson from Bauer Media. It took Peter Folding and SGI 3 days to determine that Nikki wasn't in that stretch of river.
Did you just see his big gulp there? The reporter, this is so big. I've been waiting to get to this point. The reporter's asking, he's making a comment. It took Peter Folding 3 days to determine that she wasn't in there. He's going to reiterate the 20, you haven't found anything. Well, it's because they're spending money. If you look at this Sky News video of them going to Morecambe Bay, they're literally acting. Like, oh, look at these shots. The boat goes up. They're not searching. They're not, look, come on. Come on. Right? It took Peter Folding 3 days. Now, listen to his answer. It's almost as if he didn't hear Peter Folding or the question at all.
How long will it take Lancashire Police, and how long will you continue searching the River Wine until you come to the same determination?
And again, it's probably something I can take. The search effort, both water-based and land-based, continues this week. There are police assets, including underwater search officers, continuing that exercise this week. Water is an inherently challenging medium to search, and the River Wire is tidal and flows out into the estuary near Cockerham Sands, and parts of the river have been searched repeatedly because of the shifting water patterns and tidal nature of it. We have taken the best expertise from people who are experts in the field around coastal movements of water and movements of water on inland waterways. I retain all hope, but the reality is there will be a point at which I need to review, in conjunction with Becky as the SIO and the search managers, the extent and proportionality of continuing to deploy significant search resources around the River Wire and on the land-based options we have there. So for this week, the search effort is continuing. There will be a point in the days ahead where I do need to review that.
How in God's name did he answer that reporter's question regarding Peter Folding, and it took him 3 days? Now I'm going to explain something very clearly here. It's not an accident that he completely dismissed the idea of Peter Folding his time. You don't do that. It's deliberate. Just like the media splashing of him getting taken off the experts list. He was wrong because she was found in the reeds. The inquest said the bank. And the guy who found her, Mr. Snowden, just want to remind you, because he's not a police, or at least in the public domain he's not. But makes me interested in more into the Michael Brooks case further, but I'm not going to digress on that. That's why I'm saying that comment by Snowden, that statement, the police predicted the 20, like, he just said, as I discussed earlier, that he was going to, this is the 20th day, member, the idea of shifting resources away in the days to come, me and the Becky SIO will consider that. This is day 20. You are seeing and hearing right here two of the people on the ground in Lancashire Constabulary leading this investigation intentionally. This man right here dismissing Peter Folding doesn't exist. I'll take that question. Becky lying. With all my heart, I hope we find her. And you have the police and crime commissioner coming out saying they predicted it. But he's going to take all the resources away, but he knows in 3 days they're going to find her, or the psychic will, so they don't have to answer questions. Are you not mind blown? I'm not trying to sell some narrative and twist these words and try to make it sound sweet and good. If you don't believe me, and if you're not following me at this point, please don't heckle. I'm not in this to argue. I'm in this to get answers and make a difference. Society, good people, stand up for good people. Mr. Folding, I got your back by defending you on that one there, buddy.
Nicola, BBC. Social media video makers and wannabe detectives, have they been an annoyance or a hindrance in the inquiry?
Okay.
Uh-oh. Should I take this personal?
Yes, it has significantly distracted the investigation.
Yeah, because it's faulty as hell. Or maybe it's your psyop. I don't know. I'd feel bad if it was that. But then you can't lie to the people and use their money on that crap. You know, when you think about that, it's like, and I was thinking the other day, like, maybe it's Paul and some, like, affiliation, right? And he got to the point where Falding came in, to the decoy stuff, used his basis. They're going to follow the family's heart. I mean, apparently Becky listens to Paul and Paul only. That's what she did in the very beginning, and that's what she based her decisions off of. Remember, she said it. It's not me. That once Paul got him to that point, he knew that if he put Nicola back in the River Wire, the police couldn't come at him. Right? And that's why it's crazy. It's like, you have Jason Rothwell suggesting the hatchery, and then you have Marsh Farm Hall sitting right there. And the thing is this is the pattern. I'm digressing again. How arrogant they are and in your face with this stuff, right? That's what makes me think them doing the Marsh Farm Hall interviews out there with Emma, and then Paul, and Willow was there. Gosh, I hope he's doing all right. Is that just another arrogant, like, what the hell? Like, given how this is coming along now, it would not surprise me if she was somewhere right in that vicinity. That's so disgusting to say. Or that's the thing, is like, could it really be this dark? But then where's Nicola Bulley, right? She's got 2 girls and a mom and dad who I believe are authentically upset, right? Is it really these people are this cold?
In 29 years police service, I've never seen anything like it. Some of it's been quite shocking.
Here's the deal, last comment. Sorry, I'm probably driving some people nuts. I'm going to explain this. Because in 29 years, there hasn't been social media to this extent. The fact that I can get on and create videos on YouTube and do research all the way over in the United States on a case like this and make a video with opinion, if you're doing appropriate police work, yes, they're going to get criticism, right? But to the degree that some people say my videos, oh, how can you go that far? The thing is how, that's my question. How can I get this far? Don't put this on me. Don't say I'm the amateur detective and sleuth. Explain yourselves. Answers. Because where I live, I see Nicola Bulley as somebody that I'd most likely get along with because she seems like a good person. Just on that basis, I don't think what they're saying happened to her happened. So why is it not okay for me to stand up for that? The reason you haven't seen it in 29 years is because we've evolved. And just so you know there, SIO, just because I'm on social media and using YouTube doesn't mean I'm simply categorized as such. I can't tell you how much that drives me crazy. When people say, oh, yeah, you're a YouTuber. Why is there such a negative stigma towards it? Because you reveal things that they don't want revealed. Before, they could just mouthpiece the media to say. Snowden even says it. The ones who listen to the police.
Be hurtful to the family. Obviously, we can't disregard anything, and we've reviewed everything that's come in, but of course, it has distracted us significantly. But as long as we are prioritising, which we do constantly,
No, you don't. Because you constantly warn the people from speculating. Constantly. They did it in the inquest like 3 times. Really? I get it once. But, like, go look at any other case around the world. What's the #1 PR practice? You can't respond to it. They're not just responding. They're panic responding. That's why it's so obvious.
Information that's coming in that will not distract us from the priority actions that we have been completing.
Holly Bennett, Daily Mirror. I'm just wondering, obviously you're talking about the evidence that you're working with and obviously the main hypothesis. should you have cordoned off the bench and got forensics in so that you could be more certain that you could rule out things like foul play and be absolutely certain rather than just saying that, you know, it's a main hypothesis?
Yeah, I understand.
So asking about the cordon, yeah, I've already said that. But that's why at the inquest, Adeley should and cannot ever allow there even to one be suggested. By default, I guess, understanding his way of working, he should say, well, that's a possible scenario. I mean, you can't just skip steps, right?
I would ask that. But at the end of the day, it was treated as a high-risk missing from home immediately. And the officers that dealt with it in those days had the lands.
Whoa, wait. I actually have never heard that before. She just said missing from home. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Whoa. See, listen to that shit. Are you kidding me right now? I've never heard that. I mean, I've heard it. I just was thinking. She just said missing from home. I remember in one of my past episodes, what's his name? Mackenzie. He referenced that in a Facebook post. People, the working hypothesis is the river and below the bench where the decoy of the harness and the phone is. And I'll get to Willow here in a little bit. Why did Mackenzie and now Becky say missing from home? Why are they mixing that up? Are they really investigating Paul but realize they screwed up from the very beginning? And then realize they had nothing they could do to rescue themselves? So they're literally just playing this, we're not going to make ourselves look bad game?
Searched immediately, which included the area around the bench.
Is it not significant that Willow was running between the bench and the gate, not the bench and the water's edge? I mean, I don't expect to be an expert on dog behavior.
Another hit on why Willow wasn't by that water. Completely agree. Martin Underhill said it in the beginning as well, dog would be the why by the water. I agree. I'm not saying Willow would have jumped in, but Penny. Willow sure as hell wouldn't be giddy. I can tell you that for damn sure.
I'm not either.
But what do you make of that? What has have you consulted on that?
We have consulted people and we're ongoing with consulting people, but obviously I can't speak to the dog. And all we can say is that he was running backward and forwards and he was still in the area where Nicola's possessions were, and that's all I can say.
But was more interested in the gate and the path leading away from there than the actual water.
At that time, when the witness found Willow...
See, as I thought about it more, when Penny said she went over the stile to tie Willow up, I think Willow was tied up when Nicola was taken. And they moved Willow to that area and tied him up. And then this whole story of him running in between the crap. Because you can't believe Ron or Penny because they didn't hear the screams that the lady at the tennis club did and the lady mending her garden up Allotment Lane did. So you can't believe anything that they say. So just because she said she went over the stile and Becky says it, you can't believe it. Remember, they quieted Falding for everything he said. Her phone was perfectly sitting up. Oh, not only sitting up, it was actively in a Teams phone call. As if to just paint this nice Picasso for you that she was amidst a work call. Oh, a little bit further down on the floor, there's the harness. She fell in the river. You think Nicola set her phone down amidst a team call on the bench, walked 15 yards with the harness to put it on? Like, the more and more you think about it, the whole thing's hokey. Maybe Nicola didn't even go through the kissing gate. There's no CCTV at Rowan Water or the caravan park. The lady from Allotment Lane said that she heard the scream. And the lady that heard at the tennis club said she heard the scream or the sound from what sounded like behind the graveyard. So if you use juxtaposition and kind of narrow those and kind of think of the aerodynamics of the environment, the trees, the air, and whatnot, It's probably on the towpath she got taken. Why? Because there's a caravan park exit right there. The man in black. That seems suspicious to a local. Right? Willow was apprehended and tied up and taken, what, over the stile? Hell, I don't know. I think Willow was roped when Nicola was taken.
Between the bench and the gate, however, I have to point out, the dog could have got out from there.
Exactly. That's how you know that Willow was tied up when Nicola was taken, because Willow wouldn't just run between the fence and the bench. If Nicola fell in the water, be down by the water, pacing, sure as hell not giddy. Or Willow would jump that damn fence or go back to the kissing gate wherever his mama was taken.
One more question, please, everybody.
I'll go with the musician from Talk TV. Has the Police and Crime Commissioner had a meeting to voice any of his concerns surrounding this?
The Police and Crime Commissioner has been kept apprised, but the constabulary has operational independence and
Just because he says they have operational independence doesn't mean that you shouldn't have to say it. It should just be obvious. The fact that you have to say it shows that you're trying to make sure that your next 3 steps are in the place you want them to. Just so you know, everybody, the first rule in the rule book is, well, no, duh. Like, once you start to understand all this, you can start to really see all the, you stupid people, listen here.
Carrying out the investigation, and information stays with the investigation. That's the nature of policing. Just given I've said one more question, and I'll just give it to Nick to bring one more in. Thank you.
Notes here before I leave you here with this piece, okay? To point out, the inquest, I am in the middle of doing more research into past cases and how they've been overturned and things. That's going to take some time, okay? So I'm currently working on that. So if anybody has any information they'd like to share, go ahead and go for it. And another thing I want to reiterate here is, overall, I think it's clear that there's something afoul here. Something's not right, right? So people want to know, like, well, you say this person, you say that person. Obviously I don't have all the answers. I'm trying to figure everything out, right? And I implicate different people. Obviously, clearly, all of them don't know or had intentions to harm Nicola, right? But there's something afoul, and I consider this a study group, right? Overall, the thing I have strong conviction on, right? Like the outcome, she didn't crest that weird, right? But like the money washing, or was this a psyop? That's just me bouncing ideas. I don't know. You know, we're all working together, right? But and yes, I know they say Nicola was seen and this witness saw her, right? But with the inquest and the way it ended, like I've reiterated continually throughout this episode, all the problems with all the dynamics, but just clearly in terms of James Adeley and why he deemed there wasn't further investigation, I'm just going to try to be as objective as possible here, okay? We have Nikki Bulley here on the 27th, and these are just going to be real quick reasons, check marks as to why there should be further questioning, okay? Just to point out a few, like I've said, she can't quest the weir, but to show this here, the 2 reports, we have the garden scream, and these aren't exactly positioned. She lives up Allotment Lane, garden. This is the lady, she's in the tennis club, right, which is right here. There we go, there. And she suggested somewhere behind the graveyard, okay? And the lady in the garden said that it sounded like someone jumped out on the path, like by the towpath. If you look at these 2 screams, okay, this is where she's supposed to be. This here, she's specifically stating from here, it sounded like it was coming from here, strange man in black. Again, not exact positioning. I can't know that. And the CCTV that was conveniently off here can't help us either. It was also conveniently off up by Rowan Water. But Becky said, no, that was working. So who knows? Who knows, right? But what I'm suggesting, you know, Penny's got a big question mark. So does Ron. Penny stating Willow was giddy, not hearing the scream, being the one to tie Willow up. I mean, those are just 3 facts. And her timeline doesn't match up with Miss Cheshire's, who was seen at 9:18 a.m. on CCTV. So you can't really refute that, right? Right? Then Becky didn't check the objective, didn't check the Grapes pub for over 2 weeks afterwards. You would think that would be, if you were actually looking into an investigation thoroughly, you would seek out anything close that had CCTV. Which, you know what's interesting? They actually have a Grapes pub on the Titanic. I just learned that. Isn't that crazy? Anyways, we go over to where she was found, which again, can't crest the weir. Jason, Mr. Snowden says that they predicted the 23rd day, right? That doesn't make sense because he's not police. He says he was brought to by a family friend. But they predicted the day she would be found. The police were correct all along. He has to be affiliated with the police. If it was Paul who went to him, Paul's affiliated with the police. See what I'm saying? Further, here. Jason said later on it was the middle of the river. Wait, you'll see at Inquest. We never heard about it. The media said the Reeds to throw Paul Faulding under the bus. Then they one-upped the ante and said that he got nixed off the expert list, which doesn't even exist. The Inquest, they said she was found in the bank, but I showed a snippet of the video, not revealing anything. So you can't get upset with that. It was just proof to show that I had it. She's not in the bank. Not on the other side either. Why? Because I watched them recover. So that's a lie. So why Mr. Adeley? I don't understand. I don't understand. You can't explain where she was for 23 days, how she requested it. There's no way the police cordoned off a spot. Because in the beginning, they didn't say it and reveal it. They admitted they didn't know. In my opinion, as of now, I believe that Nicola Bulley was taken from the path. I believe that Willow was roped up at that time, and then he was taken to the stage, which is where the phone was placed to make it look like she was on a phone call. The harness, that's all staged. Willow would not have been giddy. None of it makes sense. Think about it. That whole sequence, Willow's running up and down, and you think about this. There's all these discrepancies. Was Willow running between the bench and the fence, or was Willow running between? There's no clear, definitive explanation where Willow was running because that part's not true, likely. Willow was tied up when Nicola was taken. The phone was staged, and the harness was staged. Paul says his gut instinct in Luis, in the family's instinct, was never the river. But then at the inquest, he suggests that because she juggles so many things in life, that she could have fell in. Apologize for that. Adeley says that, well, that's a possibility. Right? The 2 suspicious fishermen, she didn't look into that. Not suspicious to me. The garage man who contacted the police, who came out publicly and said that they really showed no concern to follow up with them on that. The red van, the Fitbit, Becky stated that they didn't get any data received from that because it was unsynced 2 days before then. But yet at the inquest, we find out that she tracked 5,000 some hundred steps before the power. I mean, which one is it? Which one is it? Right? And then you start to think Luis is the one who kicked the whole thing off with the phone call, and then she's the one who ended it. She set up the stage spall hanging text message. She never responded. We had something planned. You know what I think? I think that's a design to fix a predetermined timeline. That's what I think. Yeah, you can't really control. You know, was it Nicola on her phone texting the friend in the lower field? No, because Nicola was likely taken back on the towpath. That's where Emma may be coming into play here. Right? The picture, the ring photo. Because I don't care what anyone says. This isn't going to be objective. This is going to be my opinion. That's Emma in that photo. Can I explain how or why it's connected? Doesn't make sense because Nicola's at the school with her daughters. Miss Cheshire saw her. How can you say that makes sense? She's in the photo. I don't know how it all fits together. I'm trying to figure that out, everybody. I don't have special abilities. I don't have superpowers. We're getting closer, right? But yeah, I think the window of the timeline. And what you're starting to kind of figure out is that everybody has specific roles in this. Emma was the ex-actress, pretty blonde, innocent, she could never be foul play, running all the interviews, the 13, 17, however many it was, I can't remember, right? Paul didn't come out for the first 7 days and reveal himself. And then he says vanished into thin air. The day after, Luis suggested vanished into thin air. Then they both go to Inquest, and they predetermined they were going to both use the word juggle. Now, these could just be coincidences, but I don't believe in coincidences, especially with everything that we have on the table here. Right. The bruises. Back to objectivity. The bruises. Knee. You know, you hear on her face. Shins. Right? And then I know I've heard things coming out of Inquest. Did she have a broken nose? I don't know. And then I'm hearing different instances to where she had mud or potentially dirt in her lungs with the water. If anybody can show me where they're seeing that or proof of that, please send it my way. Because yes, it could happen from slipping and falling in, but that leans more credibility to being forcefully submerged. So if you can find that, please send that my way. Please send that my way. And then, yeah, guys, I appreciate all of you that made it this far listening. You're awesome. You're great. At the end of the day, this is about Nicola's truth. I know I repeat myself sometimes. And I say, right, okay. It's not on purpose. I don't do it on purpose. I don't do this to be the next James Cameron. I mean, I wish I could. But, yeah, I try to make it as good as possible. But, you know, it's not going to be perfect either, right? So, yes. You can't even place her here. Now, here's the deal. Where was she for 23 days? Again, I don't know. But rationally speaking, you're not going to want to move her to the place she was eventually found from that far of a distance. Why? Because it's just too risky. And regardless of if you know people here, you just don't. You want to be as close to it as possible, but be as reasonably safe as possible. You know, you're not going to dig a hole, put her in there, leave fresh dirt, walk away, and cross your fingers and hope no, you get what I'm saying. But you're also not going to go 45 miles west. It's just too risky. What if you get a flat tire on your way back and a cop? Like, you just don't do that. You got to minimize risk. I take Jason's account of her coming down the river, him not realizing he probably shouldn't say anything. He even said you'll see it in Inquest, not realizing that you're not going to see it. That's what makes me wonder to his involvement, right? Or his awareness. He's being used, taking advantage of, right? I take her floating down the middle of the river to be extremely significant. Coupling it with my marsh harm title River Flow, I've already explained. I'm not going to go all the way into it. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. I think you'll follow me a little bit more clearly. It adds up. And then you store her anywhere around Marsh Farm, it is literally the perfect vicinity. I mean, you have that lay-by right there. I'm not saying it was used, but you have this Hudson Fish Farm hatchery, which to me, Jason's insinuating it. You know, all those little innuendos. Could it just be a play, or could it be significant? I don't know. It did look creepy in Curtis's video. Got to remember, they got awfully pissed at Faulding for saying things. You know, they got awfully pissed at Curtis for filming things that, at the time, Curtis wasn't really sure whether or not it was significant. He was just trying to help. You notice that when they ask Becky a question and Lawson steals it from them, they try to mold and shape things, but they don't do a very good job. They don't do a very good job. And I just, she wasn't in that water, she would have been found. And she wasn't on the bank. I saw the video. I just watched it again. You know, Ron and Penny don't hear the screams. She was taken on the towpath. I think these two ladies' accounts of the screams are significant because they're no way affiliated, because if they were, they wouldn't testify to what they did. Neither would the guy who saw the man in black. All three of these, do you realize, are in the same vicinity, people? This is where she was taken. She was taken on the towpath. And Curtis had a video back in the day where he showed like the old grassways with the old gates. It had to have been something like that. Had to have been the CCTV camera on the caravan park. What was her son was supposed to be in charge of it? That wasn't conveniently turned off. She was taken on the towpath. Penny likely roped a dog and brought Willow over. I don't know who staged the phone, but I guess you could say Ron, because that one interview on Sky News, he was awfully uncomfortable. Awfully uncomfortable. And again, I'm not just implicating. These are people's lives. How could you do that? Don't ruin their reputation. I'm not trying to. Everybody I've implicated has done something that rightfully deserves an explanation to it. I think that's rational. I think Nicola deserves that. Deserves that. And I know there's probably things I'm forgetting. All the different roles, like I said. Jason, you know. And in fact, Emma, maybe she's not all hot and feisty with Paul. Maybe she's just playing her role for some freaking reason. I don't know. But she's definitely involved with the forefront of being the ex-actress in all the interviews, because she's the one you've seen the most. Now, she didn't even go to Inquest because apparently her attorney told her to stay away for her own safety. If it ain't for that ring reveal, she'd be at that inquest. What does she feel unsafe from? If she was completely innocent and I was just the biggest bully and worst guy on the face of the planet for calling someone out that had nothing to do with it, does she not go to the inquest because she doesn't feel safe? No, it's guilty. She's scared. I feel bad about that just because it's another human. But at the end of the day, if you are authentic, even make mistakes, but apologize intentionally and show truth, you wouldn't have it coming your way. I don't think Faulding have to spend 2 hours preparing to put on the show that he put on. No, he was his self. That's how you don't become implicated in crap like this. Don't be crooked. Don't be crooked. Right? Who knows what this is? But that Michael Brooks case and Jason linking it, now all these details kind of, I mean, that's interesting. That's very interesting. What's going on? Huh. Alrighty, I will be back with you guys soon. I know this is again another long one. Thank you guys for sticking around. You guys were all the best. Until next time, everybody, Mind Juice out.